If an actress was ever given an award for her sunny disposition and charming smiles, then the American actress Doris Day would have received an award or two for it. Known for her girl-next-door image, Day was loved by many in the industry, which added to her popularity. But for today's video, we'll reveal the untold truth about American actress Doris Day and how much she suffered behind the limelight. So keep watching for more. Before becoming the Hollywood star she's known today, Doris Day started just like any regular person out there, from small beginnings. Born as Doris Mary Anne Kappelhoff on April 3, 1922, she was the youngest child of Alma Sophia and William Joseph Kappelhoff. The would-be star came from a lineage of German Americans and was named after Doris Kenyon, a well-known film and TV actress at the time. Their family lived in Cincinnati, Ohio, with her homemaker of a mother and her father working as a choir master and music teacher. She had older brothers. The eldest was Richard, who died before she was born, followed by Paul. Even though she clearly got her talent and penchant for music from her father, it was her mother who showered her with affection while her father continued to act dismissive toward the young Day. It turns out her father was cheating behind her mother's back, so in the end, her parents divorced when she was 10 in 1932. From a young age, Day began to show an interest in dancing, although her first time doing so left her feeling like a nervous wreck. She quickly got over her nervousness and developed a confidence, not arrogance, that allowed her to go against her family's strict Catholic views. From there, she joined the local dance team and soon became known for her talent. Day would have been a prolific dancer had tragedy not struck. On the night before Day and her family were to relocate to LA, she and her friends were struck by a freight train that shattered her right leg. She was only 15 at the time. In her book Doris Day, Her Own Story, the actress detailed how she didn't realize the full extent of her injuries and remembered how her legs weren't able to hold her up like they used to. It wasn't until she dragged herself away from the crash that she started to examine her leg. Day was surprised when she came to the sharp ends of the shattered bones protruding from her legs before passing out. Just like that, Doris Day's dream of being a professional dancer was crushed overnight. But this only made her discover a brand new passion. While she was recovering in the hospital for months, Day discovered that she had a knack for singing when she started to sing along with the radio back at the hospital. While recovering, she sang along to the tunes of Duke Ellington, Glenn Miller, Benny Goodman, and Tommy Dorsey. But the singer she liked most was the esteemed Ella Fitzgerald. There was a quality to her voice that fascinated me, and I'd sing along with her, trying to catch the subtle ways she shaded her voice, the casual yet clean way she sang the words. Day said about Fitzgerald's singing. Day's mother soon booked her singing lessons under Grace Rain, and by the end of the third session, the latter was convinced that the young Day had tremendous potential. With that said, Rain honed on her talents and gave her 3 singing sessions weekly for the price of 1. 8 months later, Day finally booked her first gig as a professional singer when she became the vocalist of Carlin's Carnival, a WLW radio program, while also singing at a local restaurant called Charlie Yee's Shanghai Inn. It was during one of her radio performances that luck finally struck, as the American orchestra leader and jazz musician Barney Rapp took an interest in her. At the time, Rapp was looking for a female vocalist and asked her to come in for an audition. According to him, he auditioned 200 other singers for the role, but it was Doris Day who snagged the position. Back then, the future star was still using her real name, so Rapp suggested in 1939 that she take on the name Doris Day instead, because her surname was too long for the Marquise. As it turns out, Rapp was enamored with her rendition of Day After Day, and one thing led to another. Soon, Day found herself working with Bob Crosby, Jimmy James, and Les Brown. Speaking of Les Brown, Day toured with him and the band for almost 2 years, while also continuing her vocal stint at Bob Hope's weekly radio program. It was also during her time with Les Brown that she recorded one of her most popular songs to this day, Sentimental Journey, which became the theme song for World War II servicemen. The newbie actress had to thank songwriters Jewel Stein and Sammy Cahn for her acting debut in the musical film Romance on High Street, because the two were impressed by Day's rendition of Embraceable You. They were the ones who recommended Day for the role in the movie, but like many others, she also went through the auditions and was ultimately handpicked by Michael Curtis, the film's director. When she heard that she got the role, Day was shocked and admitted to the director that she didn't have any acting experience, but Curtis still had his eyes on her for the role. Although he appreciated her honesty, Curtis thought that Day's freckles made her look like the all-American girl. She acted and sang in several other films soon after, like the 1949 movie My Dream Is Yours, as well as in musicals like On Moonlight Bay and By the Light of the Silvery Moon. Her fourth film under Michael Curtis was another musical titled I'll See You in My Dreams, which was deemed her most successful project under Warner Brothers. In between filming movies, her songs from the musicals continue to chart in the top 10, including her 1953 duet with Frank Sinatra, titled Young at Heart. Doris Day's big break came through when she landed the role of Ruth Etting in the 1955 musical rom-com Love Me or Leave Me, acting alongside James Cagney. Day's performance in the film was applauded, with her co-star Cagney saying that the actress had the ability to project the simple, direct statement of a simple, direct idea without cluttering it. But doing musical rom-coms wasn't the only thing she was good at. Doris Day proved soon enough that her acting chops were enough to contend with when she starred in Alfred Hitchcock's 1956 mystery thriller, The Man Who Knew Too Much, showcasing a different side to her. She was tapped to work on many other projects, but Doris Day reached the peak of her career when she started working on a series of rom-coms. One of the most popular was Pillow Talk. Her performance in this project earned her an Academy Award nomination for Best Actress, the only nomination in her decades-long career. In this film, she worked with the actors Tony Randall and Rock Hudson, and the trio worked in two other films shortly after, Lover Come Back and Send Me No Flowers. One could say that the early 1960s was the time when Doris Day's career reached an all-time high. She became the top-ranked actress at the box office and was the second woman to receive a continuous top 1 ranking, a feat rivaled by Shirley Temple. Day starred in other popular hits like Please Don't Eat the Daisies, That Touch of Mink, The Thrill of It All, and Move Over, Darling. Her last work that received commercial success was Do Not Disturb in 1965, because soon after, the sexual revolution kicked in, with her star power soon waning. A few more years later, Doris Day finally retreated from the spotlight during the 1970s and revealed in an interview with People the reason why she did so. According to her, Hollywood was changing, and she wasn't happy about that because it wasn't the town she knew. Admittedly, though, she was still open to working on other projects should the opportunity arise. But at the same time, she also said that she didn't really care for being in the Hollywood limelight anymore. Like many Hollywood celebrities, Doris Day was also held captive by her charming persona and innocent image, so much so that she felt suffocated by them. She often portrayed innocent and modest characters, which earned her the moniker World's Oldest Virgin, which she opened up in her book. Then, in a separate interview with PBS, she elaborated more on it and had this to say: "I have the unfortunate reputation of being Miss Goody Two-Shoes, America's virgin and all that, so I'm afraid it's going to shock some people for me to say this, but I staunchly believe no two people should get married until they have lived together." Aside from being seen as the girl next door, another thing Doris Day struggles with is her insecurity about her looks. She believes that she isn't attractive enough. Norman Jewison, the director of her films The Thrill of It All and Send Me No Flowers, divulged in an interview about the actress's surprising view of her good looks. Doris did not believe that she was an attractive woman, the director said. "I thought she was beautiful. Millions of fans thought she was beautiful. Everybody she had ever worked with thought she was beautiful." Doris remained unconvinced. Her co-star, James Garden, shared the same sentiment, and even said he preferred to work with Day, rather than Liz Taylor, who was another popular actress at the time. According to Garden, every project Day did turns into box office gold, and he believes that his leading lady was sexy, who had no idea how sexy she was, which only added to her charm. Behind her on-screen cheerful persona, it seems that the actress somewhat lucked out when it comes to love because of her failed marriages. She was married 4 times, and her first marriage was to trombonist Al Jordan, whom she married at the young age of 17. Back then, she was having a tough time doing tours and performing with big bands. It was not the happily ever after she thought, because it didn't take long for Day to realize that the man she fell in love with was different from the man she married. They were only married for 2 days when she figured out Jordan's violent nature, when he suddenly struck her after Jordan saw her receive a wedding gift from one of his band members, and the horrors persisted for months on end. Day admitted that she would have left him, but being pregnant with her son, Terry, prevented her from doing so. As a result, the actress endured her husband's beating, even revealing how Jordan once held a gun against her bulging stomach. She bore him a son named Terrence Terry Paul Jordan, who later took the surname of Martin Melcher, her 3rd husband. Thankfully, she didn't cave into his intimidation and managed to kick him out of their Cincinnati home in 1943. Her second marriage was to the saxophonist George William Wedler, who also introduced her to Christian Science. Even though their marriage was short-lived, tying the knot on March 30, 1946, and divorcing on May 31, 1949, Day continued to practice Christian Science. Shortly after, Day also dated future U.S. President Ronald Reagan, who was her co-star in the 1952 film The Winning Team. She remembered Reagan in her book as someone who was not only a skilled dancer, but an extroverted person who loved to go out. The thing she was most impressed with about him was the way he presented himself, speaking eloquently, which made her think he was suited for speaking tours. But their romance soon expired, and Doris Day married her 3rd husband, American film producer Martin Melcher, on April 3, 1951. He also took her son Terry under his wing and had the young boy take his surname. Day and Melcher first met when she was running away from her first husband, and later on, she believed that she had attained her happy ending after tying the knot with Melcher. So you can imagine her utter shock when Doris Day found out soon after her 3rd husband's death that not only did he squander most of her money, but she was also in deep debt. What's even worse is that Melcher signed her up to do the TV series The Doris Day Show without her knowing. In an interview with OK. In a magazine article back in 1995, Day detailed how awful it was. "I was really not very well when Marty passed away, and the thought of going into TV was overpowering," the distressed actress said at the time. "But he'd signed me up for a series. And then my son Terry took me walking in Beverly Hills and explained that it wasn't nearly the end of it. I had also been signed up for a bunch of TV specials, all without anyone ever asking me." Despite her reluctance to do it, the Doris Day Show had a pretty successful run for the next 5 years, from 1968 to 1973. As for her finances, fortunately, she was awarded $22 million and won against her husband's former partner, Jerome Rosenthal, who was charged with fraud and malpractice. Doris Day's 4th and final marriage was to Barry Comden in 1976, with the latter working as the maître d'hôtel at one of her favorite restaurants when they first met. Knowing the actress's love for animals, he used that to get closer to her as he handed her a bag of meat scraps and bones for her furry friends. In the end, this turned out to be the very reason for their separation, with Comden complaining later on how Day cared more for the animals than him. For someone as bright as her, you'd think the esteemed actress would have a suitable husband who would care for her, and yet most of her marriages turned out to be failures. Be that as it may, you'd be surprised that Doris Day is somewhat connected to a notorious individual, so make sure you keep watching to find out. As we've mentioned before, Doris Day only had one child, and it was from her marriage to her first husband, Al Jordan. Now bearing the surname Melcher, Terry grew up to become a successful producer and made the acquaintance with American musician, cult leader, and soon-to-be criminal, Charles Manson. Terry even almost signed Manson to a record deal. But one fateful day in 1969, Manson committed the infamous Tate murders at Benedict Canyon, where Terry and his girlfriend Candice Bergen formerly resided. On that fateful day, the actress found out about the tragic event through the radio and heard that Sharon and Tate were murdered at Benedict Canyon. As it turns out, Manson bore a heavy grudge against Terry and targeted his former home. Scared for their lives, the mother and son duo were under 24-hour protection from then on. Her son also took over handling Day's career and wrote in her book how he has the parent role 90% of the time. Her son Terry died in 2004 after battling with melanoma for so long, and she shared that her song, My Buddy, was about him. She told Reuters in an interview back in 2011 how she really missed him so much and considered him her buddy. She also said that she wanted that song to be there for him because it was for him. In her later years, Doris Day was always associated with animal welfare, given how much effort she put into their protection and safety. But her passion for furry creatures dates as far back as the 1950s. Back then, the actress was in the middle of filming the American mystery thriller The Man Who Knew Too Much when she saw the animals being mistreated in the marketplace. She was so distraught at how the animals were being handled that she refused to work unless they were properly cared for and given feeding stations where they were fed daily before filming. Almost 2 decades later, she co-founded Actors and Others for Animals in 1971 with other Hollywood stars like Angie Dickinson, Mary Tyler Moore, and Jane Meadows, who denounced wearing fur. Then, in 1978, Doris finally founded the Doris Day Pet Foundation, which is an independent profit organization that dedicates efforts and funds to non-profit causes that promote animal welfare. The organization is now known as the Doris Day Animal Foundation, DDAF, and works alongside her other established organization, the Doris Day Animal League, DDAL, which was founded in 1987. Apart from her love for animals, Doris Day also helped spread awareness for HIV/AIDS by exerting efforts for fundraising and research. Most Hollywood figures continued acting well through their ages, but Doris Day, the Que Sera Sera singer, chose to retire in her early 50s, focused her time on living a life as an animal welfare activist, and maintained a close relationship with her fans. Upon retiring, she chose to live a peaceful life in her home at Carmel by the Sea in California, where she was surrounded by her pets and adopted stray animals. On May 13, 2019, Doris Day died in her California home, succumbing to pneumonia at the age of 97. This tragic news was announced by the Doris Day Animal Foundation, and as per her wishes, no funeral services were held in her name, and she had no grave marker.